Joining me now, Reggie Dupree, former senator, executive director of the Terrebonne Levee District, and Reggie, absolutely losing an icon. Matter of fact, he was on so many boards, so many planning committees, but behind us is St. Matthew's that he chaired. So unbelievable.
And I think he almost single-handedly pushed the rebuilding of his church. And he was telling me one day about how he made it super strong for hurricanes. And if you notice for Ida, we didn't have that much damage at this building,
right.
You know. But we did lose an icon. I mean, he, more than anyone, is who brought Terrebonne Parish and this region, Terrebonne and Lafourche, into the 20th century, in the modern times. You know, you can't go to almost every public works project in this region, drainage or any infrastructure needs, highways. You know, he was part of it and planning it and trying to make Terrebonne a better place. And I think we see in the results today because of his tremendous work for most of his life.
You know, we have to be a little colorful today as we talk about Clifford Smith, and certainly when we did interviews, as a matter of fact, when I did the one-on-one with him, his wife forewarned him, you can't curse on the one-on-one show. So he had a colorful vocabulary, but I like to tell people he used it for emphasis.
That's right.
To get things done.
That's exactly right. Like he used to tell everybody we needed hurricane protection, and he had a life vest and an axe he'd put in his attic to stress the need that one day we're going to get wiped out. And, you know, he talked about how our grandparents all built houses here in Houma on blocks from river flooding, but now it's needed because of possible hurricane flooding. So, you know, early on after Hurricane Juan, he's the one, because of his connections with Congressman Tozan and Senators Breaux and J. Bennett Johnston, who really pushed us into a federal project. And I'm so glad that before he passed, we finally saw the signing in the beginning of a federal project for Terrebonne Parish. I mean, it's very fitting.
I started going on in Hurricane Juan, as you well know, and Clifford's biggest thing on the desk, we had him on many times, that storm coming up the Yucatan that would hit just west of Terrebonne Parish and St. Mary Parish, 3, 4, or 5 would be catastrophic for this area. He came pretty close with Ida, although it was a little east, it was still very catastrophic.
Yeah, he kept predicting, he called that the doomsday hurricane, you know, one that would come in from the southwest and you know, put water on Main Street here in Houma. And, you know, so, you know, he could see the future and what we needed to do to survive in this parish. And you know, he kept pushing and pushing behind the scenes. And, you know, he was a big mentor of mine. Back in my old parish council days, I was elected in the 80s. I'd call him frequently. And back then, of course, you know, the parish didn't have any money in the mid to late 80s. But as we went forward, you know, we kept pushing, you know, he kept pushing the dream. He said, we need not to stop, you know, keep going, and sooner or later we'll see the fruits of our labor.
I was looking back at the one-on-one I did with him, and I said, you know, Clifford, a lot of people were working the room at the same time you were, but they were working it and going around shaking hands. You were working it from the perimeter. They were going up and shaking your hand. A lot of people wanted to be acknowledged. A lot of people wanted to be supported by Clifford Smith. He was the go-to guy for many, many years.
Oh, politically, every time somebody was running for statewide office, the first stop they would make is to him. They'd call him up, whether it was governor or lieutenant governor, you know, or U.S. senator, congressman. You know, the first place they'd go visit is Clifford, and he'd give them some advice and see who else you should go see. So, you know, that, and I just thank God I was part of that in the 80s and 90s and the early 2000s, and, you know, part of his legacy a little bit.
Yeah. What's it gonna mean to you? Y'all had such a close relationship, and that phone rang a lot, and there was always those strategic pauses in between what he wanted to say, and but once he got into it, you listened for a while because he was very knowledgeable about a lot of things.
Yes, he was. And you know what else I'm going to miss about him? He, for many years, was my hurricane driver. I mean, he'd call me up, come on, let's go. And then he'd ride in some water. And then for one storm, his truck started to get water in the exhaust. So he calls me up about 2 weeks after the hurricane. Come see it in my office. I want to show you something. He put a snorkel on his truck, so he said, now we can go riding high water.
He had a unique sense of humor.
That's right, he sure did. He sure did.
But he also had a way of when you go to Washington and people go see Congressman Tozan or John Breaux or whomever, and everybody, I guess, showing their reverence, which they should, Clifford walked in and just treated them like they were at the coffee shop.
That's right. Treated them like everyday common folks, and they appreciated that. I think it was, it's been a very, very good, Terrebonne Parish has done very well with his leadership behind the scenes.
What are you going to miss the most about Clifford Smith?
I'm going to miss the most about hearing his stories about the past, about, like, for example, how the first pump station in Terrebonne Parish got built when he and Roy Pellegrin showed up at the Chaffalaya Levee District. When they got an AG's opinion, he must have told me that story a dozen times, but every time it was always so interesting,
Yeah, Reggie, I'm glad you shared some thoughts with us. Long line, you're going to be in line for a while.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Once again, Reggie Dupre, the executive director of the Levee District here in Terrebonne Parish, former senator, had a great relationship with Clifford Smith. We'll take a break. When we come back, a lot more testimonials from St. Matthew's Church right here in downtown Houma.
There are many strengths in our cancer center. I think one of the biggest is patients don't have to go elsewhere to get technology for their diagnosis and treatment of their cancer. Our treatment machine, the linear accelerator, allows us to pinpoint and treat cancers with more accuracy than ever was possible before. Mary Bird Perkins Cancer Center provides leading-edge technology with the highest quality care and the best treatment options unique to each patient.
Joining me now, O'Neill Malbrew, who happens to be in really the same profession. All these engineers, it's a camaraderie. It's a lot of time spent together talking about protection, talking about how to make a parish better. Your relationship with Clifford, boy, he was a colorful person, wasn't he?
Well, yes, I met Mr. Clifford in the duck blind hunting at our camp, at my father-in-law's camp years ago. And that's where I started my first job after graduating from Nichols. I went to work for T. Baker Smith for about 3 or 4 years, and he was a good man, good guy. My father-in-law always said he knew everything about this parish, that he knew it all. So we're gonna really miss him. He was a pillar of the community, and I can remember in the early days. I started in 1975, so worked there till I left. And but anyway, he was a good man, and a lot of what we started, a lot of what we're doing now, he started way back at the beginning of time. So,
and as I talked to you on a lot of occasions, and the other day, me and you were on the phone before most people woke up, and we were talking about you were bringing me through the parish and different things, and you engineering minds have a special way of looking at things. I bet when you got together with him, that was a pretty unique conversation, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was always interesting. And of course, we got, even after I started my own company, we did a lot of work with T. Baker Smith and Mr. Clifford. We were part of the Morganza to the Gulf team early on together. And, you couldn't keep him quiet about the history of the parish, I can tell you that. Right. So I heard it a bunch of times, and he was a good guy, a wonderful man, and I got to see him. We were doing some work for the parish on that shell property. We had to get some right-of-ways from him, so I got to sit down with him for a little while, Vince the Gate and I, and it was enjoyable. I got this. What should have took about 15 minutes took about an hour and a half, but we did good. We spent some time talking about it. We were talking about that shell property and that old subdivision in that property that he remembered way back in time. So we got a history lesson then about the property that we were talking about. But I enjoyed it. I was glad to get to see him. And of course, again, it's a sad day today. But But he had a fulfilled life. I'm sure he would tell you that if he could today.
And just for the audience to know, O'Neill can work a room as well as anybody. And of course, O'Neill's father-in-law, the late Senator Chabert, was very close to Clifford. But if anybody could work a room, Clifford could work a room.
Exactly, he sure can. And again, that's how I met him. He used to hunt at our camp. Kenny and the whole crew used to hunt at the camp a lot. And matter of fact, I can remember me introducing myself to him. I was bringing him in a hut blind, and I told him I was going to school in engineering. And he said, well, when you finish school, come see me. I got a job for you. Yeah. So, and he did. So I'll never forget that.
Yeah. He was unique. He had a pulse on everything. It's ironic that we say our last goodbyes to him at St. Matthew's Church here in downtown Houma, but he built this church so strong. He was the chair of the committee, and I was speaking to his son Kenny last night, who said it was his toughest assignment because all the church ladies want to make sure he did it correctly. Exactly. So, but he was involved in a lot of things.
No, that's good. This is the second funeral I come to in the last few months, because this was where Mr. Buddy Daisy was too. Mm-hmm. And Mr. Buddy knew Clifford real well, and were good friends, and had been on the levee board so many years. So it's a testament to people. You can see early on how many people. It's going to be a full house here for a while. I can tell you, with all the people that loved him and knew him, for sure.
And I know engineers competed, just like I see about 1,000 attorneys going in there. They compete too, but there was just a general respect that y'all all have for each other.
No, and listen, we early on, when I was just getting started, there was no competition in his mind as far as I was concerned. We worked together on a number of projects, the Morgans of the Gulf, the Barry Islands. Part of trying to keep the business in locally was to get all the local companies together and team up and go after some of the bigger companies that were trying to get some of the work. And we were fairly successful. And of course, T. Baker was the big one, so they would lead most of it. But so I owe a lot to him when we started to Mr. Clifford. He was a friend. We stayed friends even after we were competitors. And Coach Kenny and the whole family, Miss Joanne and the whole crew, we'll be friends forever. So.
Yeah. What did you learn most from Clifford?
I thought it was interesting because it was strange, because when I left T. Baker Smith, I went to work for Quality Shipyards, and show you how close we were. The first big job we had was to buy the property. Quality Shipyard bought that property where our ship is at right now, and they were going to develop a shipyard. So the first thing I did was hire Clifford and him to be our engineer. They assigned Larry Dupre, who works for me now, still works for me now. He was the project engineer. We did that project, and so we've been doing a whole lot of things. So I just think, I think it's important to understand the history of, especially when you look at the bayous and the communities. You gotta include the history in what we do. And he was dedicated to trying to save the coast and really save Montague, Lilkaya, Pointe-Shan, Dulard, and Dulac, just like we all are. A lot of people in this state, in this world, try to figure out why we want to save these little coastal communities. But you know that's what makes this area. Right. Without those bayou communities, this town wouldn't be the same. He knew that, and was one of the pillars trying to help it. So it was a good thing. So
once again, O'Neill Malbrew, we're remembering Clifford Smith, certainly a very colorful person to go along with his intellect and his drive, very driven person for the community. And certainly we're going to remember him. Many people going in and out of the church here. We'll catch up with more of them as we continue on Bayou Time. Don't go away.
The new year is here, and A.J. Doman Chevrolet is happy to announce we are South Louisiana's newest business elite, medium duty, and commercial dealer. We are now taking orders for all business and fleet customers. Looking for a car or truck and can't find what you're looking for? Come see us. We have over 150 used cars in stock and new cars arriving daily.
And remember, no credit, bad credit, foreclosure, we can help.
A.J. Doman Chevrolet at the foot of the Morgan City Bridge in Berwick.
Joining me now, General Hunt Downer, also attorney here in Terrebonne Parish, and served us well as speaker. And Hunt, if anybody knows Clifford pretty well, it would be you, and certainly a sad day. But a lot of people I'm talking to, they don't reflect on any solemn thing. They always tell me something funny about Clifford and the way he struck him. And I know y'all had a great relationship.
Well, you know, my relationship with Clifford actually goes back to when I was a college student. Clifford was back in town, and I was at Nichols and selling clothes at Sadie's Haberdashery. And with Mardi Gras and all of that, he was involved in all of that back then. Little did I know, as I guess grew up in life, I was an attorney in the legislature and then in the military. But Clifford, as an engineer, to me, he was a spark plug when it comes to our coast. He loved our community and our assets. And, you know, yeah, it was fun. He enjoyed what he did, promoting Louisiana and South Louisiana and our coast and our coastal issues. And we used to laugh, saying, you know, all those fellas from North Louisiana who don't want to vote for money for the coast, let's just tell them, as the coast erodes, we're going to move further north. We're going to be in their backyard running their government. Then they would start to realize, wait a minute, we can't just think locally. We got to think for the whole benefit of the state. And wearing the hat as a legislator, I worked with Clifford. Wearing the hat as a general in the Army, I worked with Clifford. He was with the Corps of Engineers. And when they brought the boat down here and the Corps did their river travel, I went to the Corps with Clifford and made pitches. But made the pitch not just from the military point of view, but from the real life point of view of living down here and seeing it erode. Clifford had a passion. I guess one way to say he was a spark plug. Yeah. Wherever he was, he could energize the engine that existed there.
Let me ask you this, because remember the roast and I remember the late governor, Edwin Edwards, coming in, and Clifford wasn't nervous by who was there. He had been around all these people. Matter of fact, they always would see Clifford when they were running. He was more nervous about what they were going to say because there's a lot of history, and not that anything's out the box bad, but politicians can make you nervous when you're Clifford Smith, right?
Well, Clifford had a way. He was affable. He was loving. He was almost like a big teddy bear at times. And when you were around him, well, first, he was not intimidated. Clifford, it was the epitome of rank or title does not make a leader. And when you think of that, Clifford led from the heart. He led from the heart. And when he spoke to you, it was from the heart. And what he told you, you could take to the bank because it was from experience, from his education, from his background, and from his study. I'll never forget, many years ago, they were doing a little road somewhere between Coteau and Bayou Blue. And I'm talking to Clifford, having been raised up in Bayou Blue, and he was telling me about how that canal got dug there. That was to move the timber and this and that. He knew the history of the origin of so much of our area. And when you know that, we've all learned the same history lesson. Boy, don't touch that stove, it's hot. Now, I was a little slow learner. I had to touch it a couple times. Clifford felt the same way. If we just paid attention to our history, we would know where we're going.
Let me say this for the audience, too. And, of course, we pay our deepest respects to Miss Joanna and the entire family, but I don't know if we're ever going to meet someone like Clifford Smith again.
It's odd you would say that, and I was thinking the same thing. Because he was knowledgeable, but he exuded that. He exuded enthusiasm. But he was knowledgeable when you would ask him. He didn't go around thinking he was better than you. Right. Someone told me at my mother's funeral, you're never really gone until the last memory of you is gone. Now you think of Clifford Smith. He lives on. Look at the lives. Look at the people here who are coming to pay respects because of the way he touched their life, the way he left them, the way he encouraged them. He mentored them. He lives on through their work. They're continuing his legacy.
That's well said. I got to be honest with the audience, too. Of everyone I had on TV for almost 40 years, Clifford was so colorful. I'll never forget we did a levee tour, and it went on for hours in an airboat. But when we could hear him very clearly, I had to go back. It was the longest editing job I ever did because his choice of colorful words to describe what we were going through was colorful.
Yes. Well, because Clifford had a way of communicating. He used words, colorful words, that left no doubt in your mind what he meant.
Right.
There was no double meaning in the words he chose.
I told O'Neill Marlborough, emphasis.
Emphasis, yes. I'm not going to go there either, but Clifford was one more.
What are you going to remember the most about Clifford?
It's hard to say. There's so much. I remember he was bigger than life, bigger than everything. When you saw Clifford Smith, you immediately fell in love with him. You had to.
Yeah. And he leaves so much, and even the church we stand in front of, he chaired it, and I was telling O'Neill, he told Kenny that he was most nervous about that. It was his toughest chairman job because the church ladies were keeping him straight.
Yes, and they would also kind of edit his colorful language.
Oh, no doubt. I'm sure he had to be on his best behavior.
Yes, because Miss Joanne wouldn't tolerate it any other way.
There you go. General Hunt Downer, thank you so much. We appreciate it. And General Downer, a great friend of Clifford Smith, as we once again are in front of St. Matthew's Episcopal Church here on Barrow Street, a church where Mr. Smith chaired the rebuild after the horrific fire that we covered on HTV, but what a wonderful job they did. We'll take a break, and we'll have more testimonials from in front of this magnificent church.
Sunrise in the blue skies, birds flying through paradise. A little bit longer, another day stronger. Somebody smiling down on me with those warm days and cooler nights. Friends and family and candlelight. Feels like I've been running, but something better's coming. Don't wanna have to wait and see. This feels like home. Feels like home.
Joining me now, Mike LaRussa, who also knows, Mike's in that younger generation. We all grew up hearing about Mr. Clifford Smith, and of course, he was an icon. There's no doubt about it. All elections went through Clifford. Everything went through Clifford. Your recollection?
It's a sad day for Terrebonne and the state of Louisiana. Mr. Clifford kind of groomed me as a young kid, started taking me around the political arenas, and he really had a passion for people, and he taught me a lot. There was not a candidate that ran for the state or local that wouldn't have to go sit and talk to Clifford. From governors to lieutenant governors, senators, state senators, federal, wealth of knowledge, and it's a sad day today.
Let me ask you, because when you started, and of course you worked at the Capitol with Senator Chabert, I'm sure there were many times where Clifford Smith was on the phone with Senator Chabert.
Mr. Leonard Chabert and Clifford were very close friends, and Marty too. And it's just his knowledge and his way of putting people together to make things happen for our community. And it was more about, he started he was one of the main cogs of Morganza in the beginning. You know, naturally they had to do studies, but he really wanted to put the dirt on the ground, and it was a concept that they all created, and he was instrumental in putting that together.
You know, we all talked about his vast knowledge, and he told me in many interviews that it's amazing that he made it out of LSU, but that his father put him to work at 11 years old. They were doing surveys, and Clifford would have to go cut rozos and all kind of things, and he had a permanent scar at 11 from slicing himself on one of those excursions. But can you imagine what somebody would go through today for putting their kid to work at 11? But hey, I tell you what, back in those days, that's what you did.
He couldn't. It's just shocking. he's a walking history book at that time, and I would love, you know, a 30-minute lunch would turn into a 3-hour history lesson, and it's some things that wasn't written in the book, but the truth behind it. And like I said, it's a sad day for Terrebonne, a sad day for Louisiana.
You know, we talk about his knowledge, but he was the go-to guy in the room. There's no doubt about it. I can remember when we had big banquets and these big-timers were coming in, like Billy Tozan or John Bro or Bennett Johnston, whoever it was. They would walk in the room, and people would be wanting to talk to him. They were always looking for Clifford first. He was the go-to guy.
He was the go-to guy, but he was he had a knack about him to be common. He loved Grand Isle. I could still see him walking around with his Percy Gabriel hat, old council person down in District 1, I believe. But like I said, he could talk. His storytelling was amazing. The way he could tell a story and just captivate. But if there was 100 people in the room and a national or a state politician would walk in, they would go straight to Clifford.
Yeah. And you know, a lot of people would say his most famous word would be a colorful one, but it wasn't. He used the word frankly quite a bit.
Quite a bit. And I just told the children and Miss Joanne that I guess he treated me like one of the kids, because he did yell at me a few times when he needed me to do some things, and I made it happen for him. And look, he was a mentor. I swear he was one of the first political gurus I met in this area, and I'm just glad to know him.
There were many times, and I'll tell the audience this too, many times when I would have a guest in from out of town, or people were visiting or in the music world, and Clifford would walk in with his wife at a restaurant, and we would chit-chat a little while, and people would go, who is that guy? He sounds like he knows a lot about the history of the parish, because he didn't mind sharing it with anybody. And I said, he is the parish. This guy had so much knowledge, and there's a lot of people who learn. O'Neill Marlborough just told me he learned so much from him. So it's about carrying on with the legacy. He had one heck of a legacy.
The legacy will never be duplicated. Never be duplicated. He loved his family. He loved his grandchildren. He's a great man, great man.
Yeah. And the one thing that this community needs to say is, where would we be? And I know a lot of the legwork has been in the last 10 years, but Clifford laid that groundwork for a lot of that. So a lot of people coming up, yeah, they give them credit. They did a great job, but we got put on the map because of guys like Clifford.
They remember Terrebonne because of the Cliffords, the Chaberts, and people like that. Almost every engineer that's in business in Terrebonne today all came out of T. Baker Smith or started with T. Baker, yeah, which is pretty impressive.
And that was a big thing. And as I see the people going in the church here, it reminds me of the amount of people he touched, not only engineers, not only attorney. His tentacles were all over.
Like I said, there was not a person he wouldn't sit down and talk about coastal erosion. And one of the best videos I've ever seen of Clifford is riding in that airboat with you that one time, a long time ago. Mm-hmm. That was a very colorful video, but he just had a knowledge of the area, and he would love to share it with somebody that was 21 years old at that time and would take me around, and I'm blessed to have known him.
Just for the record, I think we had 230 edits on that airboat ride.
Probably could have been a couple more if they would have heard it, probably, too.
All right, Mike LaRussa was sharing moments from Mr. Clifford Smith right here in front of the St. Matthew's Episcopal Church, where he was once again chairman of the rebuild. We'll have more right here. Don't go away.
Over the years, Louisiana's Cajun Bayou has seen more than its fair share of challenges. In fact, some of the first people to settle along the bayou, the Acadians, were folks that had been expelled from their home country and left to fend for themselves. We're no strangers to adversity, and we know what it's like to struggle. These are unprecedented times. And while people will say this time is like nothing they've ever seen, we've heard that before, and it's likely we'll hear it again. And just like all the other times, we'll get through this. And when we do, we're gonna have a good time, just like we always do.
All right, of course, a lot of people of significance knew Clifford very well. Once again, we're joined by the Chief Justice of the Louisiana Supreme Court, John Weimer. But I guess we have to yield to Cindy first, because Cindy, you were telling me that
when you said somebody of significance, I thought for sure you were talking about her. No. She is much more significant than Clifford than I am.
46 years you worked with. 47. Oh, I don't mean to cut you a year.
No, that's all right.
What was that like?
She started when she was 2.
Yes. Well, I tell everybody I was 22 and Clifford was 39 when I started working there. So that kind of puts things in perspective. Every day that I worked for Clifford was a learning experience. He was an absolutely brilliant man and taught me a lot. And like I posted on Facebook recently that he used to say, I didn't go to college, and he used to tell me that I got my degree from the University of Life, and I always said I got a master's degree from the University of Clifford. And he treated me with the utmost respect, and every day before he left the office for the day, he would turn and he would say, "Thank you, Cindy." He was a wonderful, wonderful man.
I think you underestimated that education. I believe you have a PhD in the University of Clifford.
Thank you, John.
Right. And let me ask you, Cindy, before I get to the Chief Justice, too, the many times us young guys would call up, because everything went through Clifford, Mr. Clifford.
Oh, yeah.
Everything went through. So if we had to get information and we called, you know, we went through you.
Yes, you did.
To go through Mr. Clifford. So there was a channel.
Yes, there was. And it was always a pleasure, and I enjoyed it. I love my job, and I always enjoyed Clifford and everyone I met through the years. I made wonderful friendships that I still hold true today.
And I learned one thing: if you were ever anywhere and you asked Mr. Clifford about anything about the coastline, you better be having a little time on your side, because he's going to explain it.
It was a long story. It was a long, long story. And he was just brilliant.
And I want to talk to the Chief Justice, because you're a history guy, too, and you love history.
Sure.
I can imagine when you and Mr. Smith got together, it was enlightening.
Very much so. He always extended to me an open invitation to join him on Grand Isle for the Tarpon Rodeo. And while some of the other people there engaged in somewhat nefarious activities during the Tarpon Rodeo, I, on the other hand, was getting an education, earning my PhD in the school of Clifford Smith. We would sit on the back porch of his camp, look out over the Gulf of Mexico, and he would pontificate on the issues of the day. And I would listen, and it was a tremendous learning experience. Plus, it kept me out of trouble. So he did a lot for me.
And as I tell the audience, and this is probably common knowledge to everyone, when you walked in a room, could be a banquet, could be the chamber banquet which you emceed for many times, could be anything you had, and all the big shots were coming in, and everybody sort of sat at the door trying to see who would come in so they could talk to him. They would all bypass these people and go, "Where's Clifford? Where's Clifford?" So he'd be sitting at a seat, drinking iced tea or a cocktail and not paying attention to the door. They would find him.
I'm sure that's true. I am sure that's true.
Yeah.
Happened a lot.
Yeah.
Great guy. And the depth and breadth of his friendship ran from the most common folk to congressmen to presidents. He knew everybody, and he was such a delightful person. My wife and his daughter Susie were college roommates, and he always asked me about my wife because that was his daughter's classmate and roommate in college, and remarkable ability to remember everybody and everything about everybody, and just had that human touch and that kindness.
You know, and you've done so well yourself, and a lot of people along the road learn from certain people. What did you learn from Clifford that you could say you use in your everyday job as a Chief Justice?
Treat everybody, regardless of their station in life, with dignity and respect, and you can learn from everybody if you pay attention.
Yeah. And Cindy, just you and the audience, and I was telling this to many people I interviewed this morning, I don't know if we'll ever meet another guy like Clifford. When he came through this town, and now, trust me, he's looking down now, but he was so unique.
He was absolutely one of a kind, absolutely one of a kind. And just like John said, he treated everybody the same. He and Joanne, they treated everybody with respect and love.
There's a Latin term, sui generis, and that means unique and to oneself. And that's certainly an apt phrase for Clifford.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. There you have, we're once again in front of St. Matthew's Episcopal Church, which once again, Mr. Smith chaired the rebuild after the fire that damaged this structure so much. And in talking to Kenny last night, it was his toughest job, once again, I'll reiterate, because the church ladies here at the church made sure he did it their way. And, you know, no cursing when you do that, right?
That's exactly.
No colorful language.
Well, he tried. He tried.
Well, I'm sure he governed it down a little bit.
I'm sure he did a fine job since it was a church.
Yes, yes, he did. And he tried to make everybody happy. He worked very hard. We worked very hard in helping to rebuild the church. He was instrumental.
All right, we'll take a short break. We'll have a lot more dignitaries and guests here as we remember Clifford Smith, so instrumental in our parish and many others. We'll be right back.
If you have nasal breathing difficulties, snoring, mouth breathing, gritting and grinding of your teeth, TMJ, or headaches during the day, along with fatigue, depression, weight gain, you may have sleep apnea, which can easily be diagnosed via an in-office visit and home sleep study. If you or a loved one are having these symptoms and it's impacting your life, please schedule an appointment with us for an evaluation.
All right, somebody that knew Clifford very well on a work relation, on a personal relation, and I tell you what, it's a tremendous asset to have Clifford where you could walk down the hall, and Marshall Falk joins us now. What was that like?
I tell you, I spent a lot of years with Clifford and his son, Kenny. I spent 43 years at T. Baker Smith. I enjoyed it immensely. Clifford was not only a good friend, he was a great mentor to me. And I really enjoyed all the conversations we've had over the years, and I think back to several of them. And those are things that I'm going to cherish the rest of my life in regards to that man.
What was it about Clifford? And he has a great knowledge to ask this. He was so driven, but he always took time to tell the stories behind the story. So I could see him sitting at LSU and being a professor. Of course, he was driven to get things done, but when he hired you, he expected you to get it done.
Oh, absolutely. He was demanding in a lot of ways, but at the same time, he cared about people. He cared about this community immensely. He did, it seems as though everything I saw him attack, whether it was developing properties or working on coastal erosion projects, he was all in. He never backed down from any challenge. He gave up a lot of his time on various boards, served this parish, this community, this state, in such a way that you have to admire the effort that he gave and the time that he spent doing it.
Yeah. He wouldn't get us sitting in the front of this church talking about him because, you know, a lot of people called me and said, Martin, can you Facebook the funeral? And I was talking to Kenny last night. He said, man, Clifford wouldn't want a camera in the church, but he wouldn't mind when outside the church. And he just probably didn't get how important he was.
No, you know, he was a very laid-back guy, and you're absolutely, that's a true statement. He was so instrumental in this community, in this state, again, in all the things he attacked and did, and yet at the same time, he wanted to be humble in everything he did. I can remember times he would have conversations with people where he says he's led a charmed life. Well, needless to say, he did. But at the same time, everything he did, as I said earlier, he was all in 100%, whether it was rebuilding this church when it burned down. He took the bull by the horns with several other parishioners here, Dr. Alexander as one, to get this place set up. And I know he's smiling knowing that his services are being held in the church that he rebuilt.
What was the secret, in your opinion? Because obviously, a lot of people went through T. Baker Smith. And Clifford told me many times about his dad and him having a lot in common. Clifford, you don't just grow up one day and decide, I want to survey the parish. You got to really want to do it. He really wanted to do it, but it seems like everything went through T. Baker Smith, and all the tentacles that have spoked out from that today, a lot of it started at that location.
Absolutely. You know, to say the least, Clifford ran what we always refer to as a family business, and that's what caused me to spend, 43 years of my life with that company. He treated us all as part of his family. He took care of us, and at the same time, as he progressed in life and in his business ventures, he was always looking out for the welfare of this community as well as the state.
You remember the day, the night we roasted him? You were one of those had roasted him, and Governor Edwards was there, and Clifford was just sitting down, soaking it all in, but his demeanor didn't change if there were big shots in the room or if there were people that he saw every day.
Absolutely. I do recall that night, and that was a wonderful night, thinking back to the events that transpired. And I know when I was preparing to put my speech together, I kind of decided maybe I should go have a conversation with him and get his approval. And then I went in and I told him, I said, you're probably not going to like what I'm going to say, but I'm just going to say it anyway, and I'm not going to tell you right now. And he accepted that. He says, okay, don't be too hard on me.
Yeah. And of course, he was such a colorful person to go with it. So I guess vocabulary was enhanced when you spent that many years with Clifford Smith.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt, without a doubt. You got your master's degree sitting and visiting with that gentleman, reflecting back as through his childhood, what he did as a young man in this community, and growing up all through the years of his life. It was an education process that he would educate us on almost daily, and every time we had conversations with him.
Yeah. What are you going to miss the most about Clifford?
I kind of feel as though he was a father figure to me. Over the past 3 years that I've been retired, I spent a lot of time with him, going by, seeing him and his wife, and just sitting down and talking about everything under the sun. You name it, and he was still alert all the way to the end.
Right. There you go. Marshall Falk, who worked for Clifford many years, doggone near 50 years, but very knowledgeable. Clifford Smith, as we once again say our goodbyes to Clifford, St. Matthew's Episcopal Church here in downtown Houma. We'll take a break. A lot more. Don't go away.
Welcome back. We've missed you. We know it's been tough. Because rebuilding your business isn't for the faint of heart. Your business needs a jump start. And we're here to help. Introducing Surge, symmetrical speed fiber internet from eTel Business. Revved up data speeds at 30% off, plus 3 months free. We're glad you're back, and we're here to make your business surge.
Joining me now, Congressman Garrett Graves. If anybody knew Clifford Smith and had that conversation in person or on the phone quite a bit, had to be the congressman. And your thoughts today? We've lost a good one.
We lost just an amazing pillar in the community, and one of the people that really, in regard to the just the resiliency, sustainability of South Louisiana, one of those people that was so far ahead of anyone else. You know, Clifford, just so unique, great personality, such wisdom. You know, a guy who got an appointment by President Bush and President Clinton to the Mississippi River Commission, and a person from a professional perspective never pulled punches, and I'm saying that from a very nice way. He always gave you the very candid you know, kind of answer, no matter whether you liked it or not. This is what the right thing to do is. And I just remember being in meetings with him over the years where he told people the truth, and just a lot of respect for that, because I think a lot of times people would, you know, sort of whitewash things a little bit or give him a massaged answer, and he'd say, look, this is it. And just always had a tremendous amount of respect for him for that. Obviously on the professional side, he grew the engineering firm to a very large organization, expanded the services they provided, but I'll tell you what I'll always remember about him. The big family, I'll remember about him, just this guy that really was focused on the truth and what was right, and just tremendous amount of respect for him, and a huge loss to our community.
I was looking back at some old film. If anybody I've documented over the years has been Mr. Smith. And you're right. You asked him a question, you were going to get the answer, unabridged, unedited. It was going to be, you either liked it or you didn't, but at least you could run with that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, I first met him in 1995, and so, you know, haven't known him as long as some folks, but it's been a while. And I just remember being in rooms with him, some of these meetings where you'd have 10 people, and everybody would say yes, 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 yes when asked a question, and you get to him, and he very end, and he'd say no, and let me tell you why. And just, I mean, the most well thought out answer, and you're right. Just tell you the truth. Good guy. I think a great heart, amazing morals. I had the chance to work with his kids, with his grandkids, you know, Stevie, Kenny, Baker, right. Ajel Smith, his granddaughter, and I had the chance to work together in Washington for a little while, and all of them just really good people. And of course, his wife Joanne is amazing, and it's a big void in our community as a result of his loss.
You go to each community, and there's a different leader in that community, whether elected or non-elected, that everything passes through. I don't think we'll ever meet a guy like Clifford again.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. And you do have people in the communities that sort of serve as that gatekeeper in some cases. But you know something that distinguishes him from a lot of others? A lot of people want to be gatekeepers. They want to deem themselves gatekeepers. They want to, you know, kind of flex their muscles. Clifford wasn't like that. That wasn't his style. He, in a way, truly earned it, meaning that it wasn't something that he came in and said, I'm in charge of this, and, you know, swinging his arms around, his muscles around, wealth around, anything like that. It wasn't his style. He was much more low-key about it, and I think it was truly a garnered or earned respect that allowed him to be, you know, somewhat of a grass top or a thought leader in this community.
You know, one of those things, normally people went to Mr. Clifford and said, we put you in charge. This church is one of them. He was the chairperson because it burned down. And if you look at it today, it's magnificent. It is strong. And they joked that he had to go through all the church ladies. I wish I'd have been a fly on the wall to see that.
No doubt about it. But, you know, I mean, that's the thing. You know, always very, you know, sort of unassuming and not aggressive. And I think he could negotiate his way through just about anything with that charm and that low-key approach that he had. But I imagine that, you know, this is going to be looked at as somewhat of another memory of him and all the things that he's done in Houma and South Louisiana.
From a personal standpoint, you've seen it all now. I mean, look at the positions that you've been in, more to come. Yeah. What did you learn the most from Clifford Smith?
Well, you know, so one of the areas where I worked with him more than anything else was on the coastal and hurricane protection issues. So look, he's really the godfather of Morganza, dating back to Morganza, the Gulf Hurricane Protection Project for Terrebonne and Lafourche, dating back to the early 1990s, was very involved in getting the authorizations and everything in law to allow the project to move forward. But you know, I would be around him and these Corps of Engineer generals, you know, those people with all the stars on their shoulders and everybody in the room, yes sir, yes ma'am, yes sir, yes ma'am, and just bowing to these people. And it'd come around to Clifford, and Clifford would say, no, y'all are doing the wrong thing, you're not prioritizing, you're wasting money. And I mean, just, you know, and the thing is, and keep in mind, he served on this Mississippi River Commission for a number of years as presidential appointment. He told people the truth, not what they wanted to hear. And what did they do? They reappointed him. And you know, just like, you know, you were talking about earlier, you don't have people that have garnered the respect, that are gatekeepers in communities like he has, with the style that he's taken, the very unassuming, the just candid, here are the facts, and just a tremendous loss. But I'll tell you, really somebody that I think our community should look at as a leader, should look at as a role model, and just really, really tough loss for us.
All right. Congressman Garrett Graves, I figured he would know quite a bit about Clifford Smith. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Mark.
We'll take a short break. We'll be back with more. Don't go away.
Tony Alford and Priscilla Larpenter have been the foundation of what is now Alford and Associates. Their passion and vision have been embedded company-wide. It's not just about insurance. It's about making sure that our community is strong and protected for the next generation.
We analyze and then custom design your insurance policies to fit your business's needs, not the insurance carriers.
It's quite simple. It's the mindset of our organization to protect you from life's hardships.
Your benefits are our business.
All right, welcome back once again in front of St. Matthew's Episcopal Church. Mark Rogers, who worked for T. Baker Smith for many years, and Mark, we lost a good one.
We sure did. I tell you, I worked for Clifford. I started working for Clifford when I was in high school in the summer of sophomore year. Yeah, and I worked junior year, senior year, and then when I graduated from Louisiana Tech, I worked with Clifford for 48 years. And I tell you, I'm very grateful to that family, and especially Clifford for, you know, providing me and my family, you know, with a really good living as an engineer in Terrebonne Parish. Had an opportunity to go work in other areas of the country after I graduated from Louisiana Tech, but I knew I wanted to come back to Houma and work for Clifford. You know, like I said, he provided me with a wonderful opportunity, and of course, you just can't beat living in Terrebonne Parish and working here and being involved in this community. It was a great opportunity. Took advantage of it, Morton. Yeah.
I was talking with Congressman Garrett Graves a short while ago, and he said all these generals would be in a room and everybody, yes sir, yes, yes, that's perfect, do it that way. And they get to Clifford and say, no, you're wasting time and money. Does that ring a bell?
Oh, it rings a lot of bells, I tell you. And he rang mine a few times too, I tell you. Yeah, it was no nonsense, but a good, fair boss who cared a lot about his employees at T. Baker Smith, and more importantly, cared more about his community. I tell you, he was a true leader in the community, set a good example for everybody at the office. His temper could go from instantly from good to bad, and I know that all too well. But he's had a really good, kind heart, and was a wonderful person to work for, I tell you. Yeah.
And I figured it would be dignitary after dignitary after, you know, people in the community that have really risen. It seems like everyone sort of went through him.
Oh, absolutely. There's so many people that have worked for that organization from Terrebonne Parish and outside the parish. I've seen many people. I've heard a lot come and go, but I think they all appreciated the fact that he treated them very fairly and provided opportunities for them to grow in a community, personally and professionally. Yes. So.
The amount of people, I can remember back in the days of Senator Bennett Johnston and Billy Tozan and John Breaux and so many people. I'm not saying they had to get his blessing, but they had to get his advice. I think the advice was so instrumental in a lot of these people in their climb through the political world.
Yeah, Clifford had a very good insight into a lot of things that was going on in Terrebonne Parish. This going on in a lot of adjacent parishes also, coastal erosion, land loss. The man was just a historian, okay, on people, landowners, in the history of Terrebonne Parish. And it was just amazing the way he could recollect so many names and people, and not just that person, but his whole family, And it was just amazing that the amount of data that he had stored that he could recall on and talk about. Yeah.
You mentioned the fact that his passion would drive him to both ends of the spectrum, temper-wise or calm-wise. But I mean, do you ever stop? And I guess Marsh would be the same way. Cindy, for sure, think that, man, I got to work for one of the most colorful men who had one of the most colorful vocabularies of all time.
Absolutely, that's an understatement, to tell you the truth. He was a wonderful person to work for, yeah, and he always was entertaining, very personable person, could walk in a crowd and just, mingle in and just blend in and just treated everybody really, really good,
I was looking back at some of the old interviews I did, and I did quite a few. And once we get past the colorful vocabulary, he would use the word frankly a lot.
Absolutely, yeah. He used that was one of his favorite words, Yeah, I can remember one time at Grand Isle, I was down there spending the weekend with him, and he had some dignitaries over there, okay? And I think a bunch of them had gone red fishing that night with bows and arrows. They were fishing, Yeah. And apparently it was pretty successful. But I got up early, had a cup of coffee. Clifford never drank coffee. And we were out down to the camp talking, and he said, you know how to clean redfish? I said, well, Clifford, yeah, I've been cleaning fish all my life. I clean a redfish. He said, well, look, I got a few of them right here to clean. He had one of these huge igloo ice chests, and it was like full of redfish, okay? And he said, well, here, I got a few of them I want you to clean. And I looked at that, and I said, okay. He said, look, when you finish that, I got another one over here. I want you to clean them too. It took me about 4 hours to clean all of the fish. Yeah. It was ridiculous. But
he had a way with those dignitaries.
He had a way with the dignitaries, you're right, yeah. And I remember a colorful moment at Shabazz camp. And it was, we had a great time over there, I tell you. Shabazz had all these people in his camp, and he was walking around like the king, like he normally does, okay? And Clifford was right there with him, man. It was amazing, yeah, to watch both of those guys work, in particular Clifford.
Yeah, Mark, we appreciate you joining us, and great memories from a person who worked there a long time in front of a church that he helped build. And I appreciate your time.
That's another thing. I remember him showing me the plans for this church. He was deeply involved in it, along with a lot of other parishioners, and he was very proud of this reconstruction, I tell you. Yep. Yeah. Martin, thank you.
Thank you, Mark Rogers, once again, who worked for Clifford for a long time, and they continue to go in and come out, but it's a long line here from St. Matthew's Episcopal Church.
At Big Wheels Travel Center, the fun and excitement are just around the corner in Bayou Blue. Big Wheels is open 24 hours a day and features 24-hour security, clean restrooms, and a wide selection of beer, soft drinks, and chips for all your needs. While you're there, visit the casino for daily cash prizes and drink specials 7 days a week. You'll get the feeling as if you are in a lush Vegas-style casino. Big Wheels also has one of the largest subways in the area. So stop by Big Wheels Travel Center, where everyone's a winner.
Right, joining me now, Wendell Curall. A lot of you know Wendell, his knowledge of the levee systems and having served Lafourche and Terrebonne quite well, and I'm sure a lot of those conversations were involving Clifford Smith. And you know, we call you the Godfather, and
he was there first.
Yeah, he might have been the first Godfather.
Yeah, well, Clifford Smith is a leader in so many different ways, but when it came to pushing the ball down the field, flood protection in South Louisiana, Clifford was there. He was on the national scene with Mississippi River Commission, well respected by everybody, and always pragmatic and always telling the truth. And we have such a strong truth that whenever we can get that out, that's a great benefit. And with the voice that he had, he was able to help the entire state. But personally, you know, he's helped me personally with some things. He supported me in places and actually wanted me to run some state levels, and came very close to getting that done. So, and every way you can look at it, he was one of these people, a true leader in the community, and tremendous benefits for this community. Talked to him a couple of months ago when I heard he had some problems, and you know, we talked about the good decisions to go make some money. Was in his office the idea of let's try to find a way to get part of that money, and it was in there with Reggie Dupree, Ted Fogel, myself, and Clifford. So many different areas that he helped benefit this area, push the ball down the field. Was very happy that Reggie took the job at Terrebonne Levee. Knew Reggie's heart was in it, and that's what he was looking for. He looked for people with heart into what they were doing.
You know, when we talk about Mr. Clifford, how many times did we see him walk in a meeting and no tie, rumpled shirt? Now, Miss Joanne's going to kill me for this, but it wasn't her fault. He probably just grabbed one and left, and didn't look like he was the most important guy in the room. But I guess the testament to Clifford was everybody else thought he was the most important person in the room.
Well, it was obvious. He didn't care about looks. He talked about reality. Looks are one thing, but the reality of how you accomplish things is not how you look. It's how your heart is, where your brain is. And so he didn't let that get, and other people didn't let that get in the way. Again, his strong connection with Billy Tozan all those years. All those things tied together, all the different connections. And again, nationwide with the Mississippi River Commission. He got to know some really important people, and he used those things to help the people in South Louisiana, and particularly the Lafourche-Terrebonne area.
Are you surprised? I'm not. I've been looking at the line steady for 2 hours, and it's slow, but I've been looking at the faces, and anybody who was somebody, who is somebody, is going through that line.
I just walked in discussing issues with Senator Kennedy. Usually I have to fly to Washington and have a discussion with him. I was able to talk about some of the issues that we have about flood insurance, about giving credit to what levees that keep floodwaters out, like we experienced just with Ida, and to get credit from the national government. And he's basically saying, well, those people at FEMA don't talk to him. Now, that's something when these federal agencies don't talk to sitting senators. That's a sad situation.
We talk about knowledge. And I've had this conversation all morning with people. Will we ever meet anybody like Clifford?
Well, there's always people that do what Clifford did. Basically, he understood. Well, that's one of the big issues that I see us changing. We put a lot of effort and emphasis on educational and degrees and stuff. And that's great if they're based on actual work on the ground. And Clifford, like so many other people, they grew up working, and they were out there and got marched between their toes. When I go talk to an engineer that's been on the ground and then has had the education, you get the best person. He's got the best of practical and the best of the ideal. And our problem is a lot of people we have in places that make decisions have never put their foot in the marsh or on a levee, and yet they're making decisions for us. And Clifford was just the opposite. He's been there, he saw it all, he was on the water, he was on the land, and experienced all of that, and experienced all that through his kids. So, and all his friends, he was surrounded by people who actually did stuff on the ground. And so you have the nice thing. Engineering is just nothing but a bunch of averages and generalizations but when you use specific work in a specific area, it's the subtleties of that area that make the difference, whether you're going to be kind of successful or very successful.
But he had both. He had mud between his toes, and he had an engineering degree.
Exactly, and that's the point. That's the point. We still make those people over here, but not a lot of people throughout the country, and that's where our conflict comes in. We live in a special place. People like Clifford had the respect from other people that he could talk about how special it was, and they would listen to him.
Final question, did he enhance your vocabulary like he did everybody else?
Always, always. Some words that he didn't understand. But but Clifford just outstanding individual. That's why it's a sad day today that we lose someone like that. For Lafourche, Terrebonne, for Louisiana, actually for the nation.
Yeah, what are you going to miss the most?
Well, I just sit down, he just talked real issues, and then he looked at avenues to get them done. I mean, you always look for somebody who has connections to the larger issues and the people who can make a difference. Talking to him about those issues that's what I miss the most. He was a person I could go to that could help move the ball down the field when we were trying to push our projects and push our mission for the success of the people in South Louisiana.
All right, once again, Wendell Curall, as knowledgeable as they come, spent a lot of time with Clifford Smith, and we'll take a break from St. Matthew's Episcopal Church here in Terrebonne Parish. Once again, the church had Clifford chair to get it rebuilt after that major fire, and we'll have more all week on the life of Clifford Smith. Once again, our condolences to Miss Joanne, the entire family, and certainly we're going to miss Clifford Smith and what he did for not only Terrebonne Parish but the surrounding area.
This is Martin False live in Houma. We're in front of Hebert's Motel where water is up to the doorknobs at the motel.
Telephone poles almost completely to the ground. This storm had some fury to it.
The following morning, Hurricane Andrew had taken its toll on Terrebonne Parish.
But the stick doesn't lie.
No.
They said it started moving north-northwest. That was a jog.
It's a very tense day for Terrebonne Parish. Levee after levee has been breached. You won't know until it equalizes how many of them have actually broken. And I'm just looking at that stick shot again. That center circulation has moved back on the stick, and Lafourche and Grand Isle to me are ground zero at this point. It's moving right up the stick, and that stick goes directly over Grand Isle and Fouchon. Joining me now, SP LaRussa, and SP, we've lost a good one, but you had a great relationship with Clifford. Y'all go way back.
Well, I go back over 70 years with Clifford Smith. Clifford Smith probably was the most important person in my life. He got me involved with real estate. He got me involved with Mardi Gras. Clifford Smith was a jewel to me and also my family. Just it's sad to see him leave, but over 70 years I've been knowing him. Joanne was good friends with my sister. She lived in Shreve. Shreve at that time was way in the country, and so Joanne used to stay at my house a lot on East Main Street, and Clifford was there all the time as a young boy in high school, and courting Joanne. I mean, but he was a hell of a guy. Business-wise, he actually, if I had any one person in my life, and I'm 80 years old, who has turned me into a business person, a person how to go out and help people and make money, Clifford Smith was my master teacher. He taught me everything about business, and I'm going to miss him. A lot of people are going to miss him.
Yeah.
Just
watching the people coming through the lines, and the people of all economic backgrounds, the people that have done really well, the people that it took to do all the groundwork, to do everything. Everybody sort of went through Clifford.
Well, Clifford, you know, I got involved in politics because of Clifford Smith. Clifford Smith was well touched. He was friends with all the politicians from Washington, D.C. to Baton Rouge to Houma, Louisiana. He's probably the only person in my life that I know that had that much connections on a political thing and a business standpoint. But he was fair, and he took care of a lot of people in Terrebonne Parish. Clifford was one of a kind, and his kids are going to miss him. I'm going to miss him, but the man above says it's time to start a new life somewhere else, and he's up there with the man up in heaven.
I was joking that Clifford would be with St. Peter right now, and although St. Peter probably knows our dilemma already, Clifford's teaching him.
Well, that'd be a possibility, but I told him one time, when he gets up there, look up St. Teresa. St. Teresa's waiting for all of us. You know, we lost several good friends this week. You know, Clayton Wazan we lost. Chris Ernie we lost. Kennard, the boy, we lost. So there's a lot of, this past couple of weeks, we've lost a lot of good people from Houma, Louisiana.
Dr. Bobby Haydell.
Oh, I forgot Dr. Bobby. He was a jewel, man. Dr. Bobby was one of a kind. I mean, if anybody didn't know Dr. Bobby, they missed it, because he was one hell of a deal.
Do you think there's anyone, I talked to Congressman Garrett Graves a while ago. I heard that Senator Kennedy was also inside the church. Do you think, going back to the Tozan, John Bro days, any of those individuals, when they heard, hey, Clifford Smith's on the line, ever put him on hold?
Never, never. Clifford Smith, once he made a call to any political guy in Washington or in Baton Rouge or Houma, nobody put him on hold, because he just touched a lot of support. I mean, if Clifford Smith was with you, he got me to run for school board and got me elected as a school board member for 8 years. And, you know, we're going to miss him. We're going to miss him. His family's going to miss him. And, you know, but like I say, there's a place somewhere else for him, and he's needed up there, and he's going to do well.
He was such a colorful storyteller with the use of some very colorful words, and he used them for emphasis.
Yeah, well, that's that engineering background. You understand? That engineer background was, he took care of everybody around him. I mean, he had a lot of friends, man. I mean, you know, not only the people that's here at this funeral, Clifford Smith touched a lot of people in Terrebonne Parish.
He got things done.
He made everything happen, man. I mean, you know, you look around, I mean, the levees, the floodgates, he was involved, and he made things happen to make Terrebonne Parish what it is today.
We could probably give a lot of credit to Joanne. She was the perfect person for a guy like Clifford.
Joanne and I go way back, because she stayed at my house when I was about 10 years old. My sister was 16. They both went to Terrebonne together, and she's a sweetheart, man. I mean, look, she put up with Clifford, and I mean, she was his backbone. I mean, she made him walk the talk and talk the walk, and she really took care of him, and she's going to miss him.
Well, you said it right, though. We've lost some good ones, but today people paying their respect for someone, we've lost an icon today.
Yes, it's one of a kind, Clifford Smith.
Yeah, no doubt. S.P. LaRussa, remembering his friend, Clifford Smith. as we continue to bring you stories from St. Matthew's Episcopal Church here in Terrebonne Parish on Barrow Street. I'd like to say the church that Clifford helped rebuild, because it was lost in that tragic fire, but they did a great job. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. More from St. Matthew's Episcopal Church.